Everyone, welcome to Raw Recovery. Um, we're going to do captures now. Welcome to, well, that doesn't fit, does it? If you're here, please say hello, whether you're watching the live or the rewatch. We'll get started here in about 3 minutes because it takes people a little bit of time to get on. For any of you rewatchers, you're probably going to hear a little bit of repeating here. But Marcia, I want to introduce Marcia. Marcia, I met, I don't know, how long ago was it, Marcia? Like a year and a half ago now?
Oh, I'd have to look it up for sure, but it was Barbara's funeral
Yeah,
celebration of life. Yeah.
yeah. It says I'm live, but it's not putting it up. There it is, finally. Jeebus. Yeah, and we actually met at the Northland Church.
Yeah.
And, all right. We'll get to this, people, I promise, but I got to put it out so that we have guests. But then I approached you about doing AA at Henderson Community Church, and that's kind of where things got started for us. And even though it didn't quite work out, the group didn't work out, you and I formed a very strong bond. And since then, neither one of us are even at the church anymore,
Yeah.
but we're working together.
Yeah.
And I'm almost done sharing. Then then you guys will get the theme song and we will get started on this. What I'm avoiding here is spirituality versus religion. We're not really going to be talking about religion here. And you'll understand better once I explain, what we're doing. We had a conversation at one point. I only have to share one more. See, this is what I go through when I do lives.
That's great.
And there. Okay, we are done sharing. I hope everybody enjoys the theme song. We will be back at 47 seconds.
The woods can be dense for our acts. The sea can be deep for our diving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Wasn't supposed to do it again. I tried to cut it because there's this little part after. Welcome everybody, Raw Recovery, Trudging Together podcast. My name is Dion, and I'm going to be your host today. Today we have a good friend of mine, Pastor Marcia, who we will just call Marcia from now on because she has a real name. And yeah, welcome. Thanks for taking your time and coming on and talking with us.
Yeah.
So, we were kind of discussing how we met. But what had happened is we were, it was one of those days where I was having an AA meeting that nobody showed up to, but Al-Anon's doing great. So, but we were sitting outside and we were discussing, how we'd get more people there. And you were saying, hey, even in church, there's a lot of people not going to church anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I think I have a lot of theories on that, but I think people just get isolated and into their own routine. And the other part of that, though, is people are lonely and looking for community. And that's just human.
Church is a great way to do that community, but I know that I was wrong on some things. So I'm going to kind of go more into that discussion. And what I had said in my unclosed mindedness or my being naive, I said, well, people just don't go for that hell and damnation anymore. And you said, that's not what I teach. And then we had a much different conversation, so can you kind of tell me what you kind of think of God and your concept on that, what you kind of feel your higher power is, and, And I also want to point out that Marcia is a big supporter of the 12 steps and does a lot of Al-Anon in Utah. And thank you for that, by the way. I wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she does understand what we're talking about also here, which is why it's going to be great. But I'm going to shut up so you can say something.
Oh, no. And you always just go so deep, so fast. And I appreciate that. But so I think your question was, what is God?
Yeah. And for what is your, I mean, I know it's a tough question, but for, I'll kind of go first. My higher power is loving. I grew up Mormon and they were like, if you do this, you're going to hell. And I just didn't get, whenever I felt like I had contact with God, I just didn't feel that. All I felt was love. And it's always more of, I think of God as more like a parent, like a father figure than anything else, so that I can think of his children that way too. So when people ask, why am I an alcoholic? It's like, well, because you can help when no one else can. That's why, and that's a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
For me, God is like water. It's malleable. It can fit anywhere. It can destroy rocks or create valleys. It can conform to whatever it is. So there's just there's so many different ways to God and concepts,
Yeah.
But that's what's neat. You could, because Marcia's needs are different than Dion's needs, but we still share kind of the same higher power.
Oh, yeah. And I would totally agree with that. I think it's rather ironic that you were born in Utah, right?
I was.
Yeah. And you said you started out in the Mormon Latter-day Saints community church. And when I finished my Master's of Divinity, which is just so ridiculous because I don't think anybody can master the divine because it's so huge and it doesn't fit in anybody's box. And but my choice was to go to Utah, and everybody thought I was crazy. But I love to hike. I love to be in nature, and I ended up in a very small town on the Arizona Strip. Yep. But the LDS church just embraced me and didn't want to change me. But we all knew that we needed to work together to create a better world.
Yeah.
And we got to do that in beautiful southern Utah. I mean, I just loved
Utah is beautiful.
Yeah, Zion and Bryce and hanging out in nature. But what I was extremely blessed with is I had this little tiny church, but I would say 80% of my church family were in recovery.
Yeah.
And what that showed me is that we're all just in recovery, and we do need something bigger than ourselves. And we need supportive community. And the Mormons that I fell in love with and that fell in love with me, we didn't judge each other at all.
Yeah.
We just agreed that there was something bigger than all of us, and this is just a moment in time. And so
and I'll point out one thing. I was never treated badly at church or anything like that. Everybody was pretty open-minded. Now, this was the 70s when I was going, and the Mormon church has changed a lot, but they have, and good for them to kind of, but I think a lot of what we're talking about, because you do a lot of the same thing that I do, which is just kind of meeting people where they're at and then helping them with their needs.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you won't hear me talk about hell or heaven, or I'm not going to judge anyone. Even I have been serving churches officially as an ordained minister for the last 11 years, but I've been in churches my whole life.
Yeah.
And it's always just been about loving one another and meeting each other where we're at. And I do follow the teachings of Jesus, but I also have a lot of friends that are Buddhist or Muslim or non-ritualistic in their understanding
non-denominational, atheist, agnostics, sure. Yeah. There's a lot of different things. So for me, as an alcoholic, and for me personally, I had a lot of wrong views about the church. And even in our big book, it says it is time, it pretty much says it's time for us to see where religious people are correct. So in other words, there's a lot of things in there that I just said, well, that'll send me to hell. So, but I had to change my own mind. I had to change my own purview. But, for somebody like me, I always believed in God. I never had, God wasn't a problem for me. I didn't think he was going to take me back. But I found that God does not make very hard terms.
Yeah.
My higher power he does not test my sobriety. I don't know where people get that. Like, God tested my sobriety. I'm like, no, you chose to walk down the alcohol aisle, not him.
Yeah.
And how do we take our own free will that I'm messing up and combine it with God's? And we have a process we have our steps, but our steps are not much different than, I call the big book Bible for Dummies, right? Because it's put in a simple language for somebody like me to understand that I was kind of wrong on my concepts. Trying to find a sticking point here to get you.
Well, no, and I will, I'll just offer that people quite often say, well, it's in the Bible. And I remind them, well, which Bible are you using? Because the Bible that we currently have, there's a whole history there that there's books that were not included in that Bible.
Okay.
There's writings that have been around long before that Bible was published.
Yep.
And I could go into the Christian history of that. And there's the Hebrew Bible that's been around forever for the Jewish people. And then there's the New Testament that has been changed and changed and changed and retranslated. And so I love that you recognize your book as biblical as well. It's just kind of a manual of how to live life and create good life.
Yeah. I mean, for alcoholics, it has to be suggested or we're like, no, so we suggest that you do the pat on the head and everything. But, I've found that, God, I had a point in there too. So God not making very hard terms, but for us, gifts from God. Yeah. I feel like we tend to get gifts from God beforehand. And real quick, thank you everybody for being here. We've got 5-6 people here. We have more people here than I usually do at my lives. If you want to ask questions, if you have an experience, put it up. Hi, Gary. Hi, Daryl. No worries here. If you have questions, and we'll do whatever we can to answer them. And that might help us too. Because this is for everybody. It's for everybody. It's just Marcia and I are available to be here. So
yes. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. There's one consistency, and this is going a little, I've got a couple of things, but number one, there's one consistency that I've seen in almost every religion, and it's Jesus. That's the I don't know if that's a topic, but I have noticed that that's the one consistency that I've noticed. Now, I'm not, we're not going to have a Jesus conversation, but it's just these things that I've been starting to notice. I don't know who he was, but obviously he did something good. He had to have, or we wouldn't be writing about him. And putting yourself up and taking the pain for others. I mean, what am I trying? Sacrifice. Because in AA, the theme of our first tradition is unity, which means that we sacrifice with I'll sacrifice what I'm doing for the good of the whole. If that makes sense.
Yep. It's going to go close the window and
even in our big book, and I think it's in the beginning. I'll try and find it, but it talks about all the different types of religions that are in AA, and that everybody gets their own. and nobody goes around and says, no, you've got to have this type, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are now understanding that. Well, let me ask you this. Can I be spiritual and not go to church?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I just spent some time with my Cambodian sister-in-law.
Okay.
She's no longer married to my brother-in-law, my husband's brother. Anyway,
But
she's
she'll be
back
your
in
sister for a
Cambodia.
while. Yeah.
Yeah, she's back in Cambodia, and
Okay.
she's worked up to a 90-day silent retreat out in the forest.
Wow.
For her to be in conversation or in community with her divine.
Yeah.
So that's very spiritual. She's not doing it with anyone else.
Yeah.
People are watching to make sure she's safe, but it's between her and her divine.
Yeah.
And she finds the divine in nature and in silence. And so, yeah, I think people can be extremely spiritual and not aligned with a official religion. I think Christianity, I don't want to get in trouble here because I am ordained and I'm still serving churches, but Christians sometimes take the easy way out. They don't have prayer 7 times a day. They don't have a prayer rug. They're not going to temple like the Jewish people have so many high holy days a year.
Yeah. Well, even during the week.
Yeah.
Right. No electricity.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you can be very spiritual and not belong to an organized religion. But I think it's important for us to be in community with like-minded people or not. I'm very interfaith and ecumenical.
Yeah.
And so I just like acknowledging, like you said, that you have no trouble believing in God. You know there's something bigger than yourself. There is a higher power. It's just how do we come together as humans?
Yeah.
Trying to share that. So
and while you were saying that, it brought up it kind of brought up the third step. I'll bring something from the big book, and I won't read anything that you'll get it because you understand it probably better than we do. And it's on step 3, and it says, we are now at step 3. Many of us said to our Maker as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them I may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Then it goes on to say, we thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. Because for this alcoholic, I couldn't just give up alcohol and my alcoholism. I had to give up everything. Wow. Even if I have willpower over drugs, but still, I got to give it up. But then it goes on. It says, we found it very desirable to take this step, this spiritual step with an understanding person, such as our wife, best friend, or spiritual advisor. It's this line. But it is better to meet God alone than with one who might understand. And I have found that most people find God when they are alone. That's when God, So I'll do the third step with what we call a sponsee. Well, you know what a sponsee is. And it doesn't always take effect. I'm like, no, when it takes effect, let me know. And usually within a week, Dion, I feel so different. I feel so different. And that's when I know. That's when I know. Yeah. Hey, they got it. Just took just a bitty little teeny weeny thing, right? And all I did was ask. I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And God said, "Yeah, that's my will. I'm going to give it to you."
Yeah.
So I find, when it comes to because I'm not a very selfish person. Actually, I'm a very selfish person, but I'm in God's will. When it comes to my higher power, it's mine, and I won't even let you talk to him. No, it's mine. I'm very selfish about that. But there again, it's for everyone. And when I have that direction in my life, it's just, I don't want to say easier, but I will go with better. My life better.
Yeah. It's the accountability piece, right?
See, folks, see?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is it about accountability with God that makes it so much better?
I think we need to look at our life as a gift. I mean, it's something that we have been gifted with, and for us to not appreciate that and take care of that gift,
Yeah.
it's not appropriate, I guess. So the accountability is that God has given us this life, and we should
Yeah.
live it to its fullest and not mess it up, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
I had because and you kind of already know my story. One day I'll tell you my story, but
mm,
you know, when I was 17, I was living on Skid Row. At 18, I went into a place called the Phoenix Concept, and I was a drug and alcohol I mean, I did some great things during my sobriety, and after 12 years, I went back out,
wow.
and I went out for 15 years. Um, and my fear was that God would not take me back.
Mm,
And this is just pride in reverse. It's just ego in reverse, you know, because I either think I'm the shit or a piece of shit, but God don't make crap.
yeah.
He doesn't make crap,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I was like throwing in these chats too. Daryl says I made my connection first through meditation, then open my eyes to see it on other people. Yeah, it's when we can start seeing God in other people and God working in other people's lives. It's a high alcoholic's love. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's that darn accountability. But I'm glad you said that because accountability is the number one way to stay sober.
Mhm.
Yeah. I can't drink. I have to talk to my sponsor later. I can't drink. I have to go to a meeting later. Um, so, but in anything, you take an alcoholic with no accountability and it's going to get messed up because now I'm trying to decide all by myself on what I think should happen. And I've already proven I'm not good at that. So,
So two things, and I was kind of watching the chat as well. And Daryl, I'm really glad you're here. And I don't know, I'm going to let Dion take charge of where we go. But you said two things. You said God doesn't make shit, and
right.
that is so true. I mean, why would God make
Yeah.
bad stuff? And then you also talked about ego, which I think is a human thing.
Yeah.
And we create that through our understanding of what we're supposed to do as humans. Like, are we
Yeah.
supposed to make a lot of money? Are we supposed to have big houses, fancy cars, oppress people, be the 1%? I mean, that's all ego driven. Whereas
Sure.
if you're in connection with a higher power, it's not about ego at all.
Yeah.
It's opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, when you're meeting people where they're at, you are removed. So therefore, none of my own bull crap comes into it. Yeah, Amber, some of the chat hasn't been working. I'm sorry. Just so you folks know, sometimes the chat's been kind of shoddy. But I'm glad you're here, hon. Oh, you
Yeah.
said you didn't say hi. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here though. um, yeah, those are some great points. This perception of, there's some of us where we grow up and we've had, and I kind of felt this way. I had a rough life. And so as I got older, I'm like, where's my due, man? When is my due? But there we are, due. But anyway, but I didn't even know what I thought I should be due.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
over here determining my own worth, which is going to be short of everything, or it's going to be too much, because here I am at those extremes, right? I'd rather do it this way. So, right, I have, all this bad going on here and all this evil, or all this good and all this evil. And when you bring them together, we got God. We have God. And the way that I see it is this: I have children, and I like them when they get along.
Hmm.
I don't like it when my kids are arguing. It hurts me.
Oh yeah, no, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it.
Yeah. So What would God think if I'm over here putting down his child? Oh, right? He's going to defend them. You bet. Um, I like giving examples. This morning I got up and I'm like, okay, God, this house, okay, do I need to be putting more action into it? What do I need to be doing?
Mm.
Right. And oh, it was probably 20 minutes later, somebody posted something because I'd gotten rid of a lot of people so that I could watch the dust settle, see who came out on the other end doing the right thing. And there was this one person, he went through what I'm kind of going through. And we ended up talking. He's like, Dion, do this, this, and this. And he's helping me avoid all the pitfalls.
Oh, wow.
The answer was, Dion, you're not putting enough effort into it. Quit sitting around. I know you're making phone calls and you're doing some stuff, but you're going to have to put a little bit more effort into this before I give it to you. So it's not a no, it's a not yet kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So when I ask questions, I've got to stop and listen. Is it true for you too that when you ask God a question, he answers through his children? You're a pastor. I don't know. You got your master's in divinity. He might.
Yeah, you're making fun of me now. I love school, and I think it's just I just love being with other people, learning things, and so being a pastor's third career for me. I started out at the Capitol. I was on legislative staff, thinking I could change the world.
Sure.
I staffed health, education, welfare, and institutions. We made sure the children were being fed and that people had a place to live. Well, that sucked.
Yeah, it does.
I went through 4 governors and I had to redo everything, and it just wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
So then I had an opportunity to work for an international corporation, but my job was to give away $500,000 a year to nonprofits.
Okay.
And our focus was domestic violence and literacy programs.
Okay.
But it was corporate America.
Combo, but
that's where we put our money, but it was all.
Well, it makes sense because domestic violence, and then they usually have children and education. So yeah, it does go along.
And that was through our foundation, but that was with corporate America, which is ridiculous. I mean, the waste that goes on in corporate America. So that wasn't working.
Look at the Colorado Coalition of Homeless, and there's 750 employees.
Yeah, so we're breaking all the rules. We're talking religion, politics. What else are we supposed to do?
Politics, we're not allowed to talk about the president, but that's just for storytelling. Here, we're okay.
But I think, and Dion knows this story, my childhood wasn't great either, but I met this wonderful man when I was very young. Mm-hmm. And Steve has been with me, but Steve was at Columbine the day of the massacre. He was teaching there, and I had said yes to a job in Switzerland. I chose my job over my husband, but when Columbine happened, I didn't take the job. And then I ended up going to seminary, and I ended up in churches because the churches should be feeding the hungry and taking care of the homeless and giving comfort to the widows. I mean, those are all of the teachings of Jesus. It's about love, right? And that's why God showed up on earth in the form of Jesus. And I'm not going to preach. It's just, I thought the churches could do that. But when I met Dion, I show up every Sunday morning. I have 3 churches, but I'm finding that Sunday morning's not enough for me. Showing up and talking to people and so I've resigned from my churches because I think there's more work to do.
Sure.
I'm really glad that Dion is my companion on the journey, and I have no idea what God's plan is, and
we're figuring it out. A couple of plugs for you real quick though. Number 1, okay, Marcia has her master's in non-for-profit. Okay, you don't do that unless you have a servant's heart. Yeah, I mean, you don't go into non-for-profit and get rich. It's, so when we're over here, we're talking, and I say things like, well, people are making money over fist. We know we're not in recovery. We're not in God's world. Yeah. And I'm only going to say it this way because I don't have a better word for it. But the devil comes in shiny things, at least in recovery. comes in neon lights. Hey, we're doing this. It's exciting. Look at all this community. And really, there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
When I have found that, at least for me, recovery is and change is dirty.
Mm.
We play in the mud. By the time I'm done, by the end of the day, I'm, head to toe covered in dirt because we work the front lines, and it isn't pretty stuff. But that's where God has called me.
Well, and I have to say, I chose to be a local church pastor because I thought it'd be an easy retirement plan.
Okay. No.
But I'm not ready to have easy anything.
Not
I'm still pretty young.
Not at that amount an hour. And I'm not going to bring up how much it was.
And I know there's a lot of work to do, but I really appreciate. So, Deanne, your question was, does God speak to me? And yeah, I could have easily stayed in the churches and just showed up on Sunday mornings and made a couple of way too many funerals. But God has said to me, Marcia, get off your ass and do something different. And so God is speaking to me. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'm really glad that you and I are looking for ways to work together to create a better world. And we're not here to brag about Deanna and ourselves, but I love your point. Like, we need to be in conversation, be listening to our greater power.
Yeah.
Because if we just do it in our own head, have our own little committees in our head, it just, you have to reach out and be in conversation with others.
The main thing in AA is freely give. I got it for free and I give it away for free.
Yeah.
And AA isn't like I have. So I had a sponsor, and I don't pay back my sponsor. No, I pay it forward to the next person so that it continues on. And it's just one person helping another person out without anything else interfering with it, like money or time or, but I'm a big believer in the fact that I'm big on experience, because experience is fact. It happened. I've been there. I went through it. And, can Dion help a drug addict? Yes, he can, but not like a recovered drug addict can. So my job is to say, yes, I can help you by going and finding a drug addict that's recovered for you. And that's where we're different, because a lot of people, and I get it, I want to help everybody too. I do.
But I don't redirecting them is helping them. Like you said, you're not going to just say, can't help you and walk away.
Yeah.
You're going to do everything you can to help them find help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A sponsee just called me, and they were at work, and they had to go outside and deal with a drunk person that was being, and he gave this guy every chance calmly, hey, and then he threw a ketchup packet at him. And he's like, I don't have a choice here. I'm at work. I have to call the police, which was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he did it the right way. Whereas before, you get that packet thrown at you, and go grab that, beat the crap out of him, But this time, instead, what he did, well, do you want to press charges? And he said, no, I don't want to press charges. I want the person to get help.
Yeah.
There it is. A year ago, that's not what would have crossed his mind,
Wow.
And it's just neat. It is the neatest thing to me. It's cooler than my own sobriety, because now, I'm a person that comes from the trash heap of life, and, I find God, and it says that the verdict of ages that all men of strength have God. I have strength. And what happened is I became recovered. I do God's will, and now I get all these extra dividends that I just get to give away all over the place. And it's usually love. It's usually in the form of love, because that's how God treats me.
Yeah.
How God treats me.
Yeah.
Unconditional love.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we do here. And that just means, doing something for somebody else. And that's actually what I was telling my sponsee. I said, you did the most estimable thing. What you did, because the guy had warrants. He was going anyway. I said, God chose you to help this child today, and you did it appropriately.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I said, think about it, and maybe, I don't know, call the police officer and see if you can go visit the guy in jail. Maybe you can help. Maybe you'll have a little something because, hey, I'm the guy that I had to call the cops because you were throwing stuff at me, but I didn't press charges. Is there something going on that I can help you out with? I'm a recovered alcoholic, and is that what's going on? And now we have a different attitude because
Yeah.
of God.
Yeah. Oh. Thank
Yeah,
you, Daryl. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think, where the church is really suffering right now. So many people have been hurt by
Yeah.
organized religion in the church because of judgment and because of hell and all of that. And
Well, don't you feel like some religions, just like recovery, has become big business? It's become big business. Kind of.
yeah, and it shouldn't be like that. I mean, it's just I think, Dion, you and I were talking about, I was just downtown at a conference and Purple Doors there, and it started with Dry Bones. I mean, there's all kinds of things
I
that
love
are
dry bones.
good. Yeah, good things that are happening.
Yeah.
But it's the churches that are, yeah. And I think you said at the beginning, we're not going to talk about church. We're going to talk about spirituality. We're going to talk about higher power.
But that all comes into it. I mean, well, the question really is, how do I thank God for doing what he's doing for me? That's kind of really the question. Do I go to church and take my 2-3 hours and do my alms and my amens and God likes that, I don't feel like God really expects anything in return. So what I did is I searched for their love language, and it turned out their love language was trust. And that the more I trust them, the better it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know who the they is that you're talking about, but yeah, it's not always, like I said, yes to ministry, because I think churches can make a difference. And
Absolutely.
I did tell Donna that we'd probably talk about her at least once today, but Donna is the person that kind of oversees the building, and she gets that it's not just about Sunday morning, that the churches should be available 7 days a week, 24/7. And
Donna's got a servant's heart. We love Donna. That's why we're bringing her up.
Yeah, we do. But I think if churches can do more than Sunday mornings, then we're doing what God wants us to do. And
yeah.
So,
When I was talking to the guy earlier that was trying to help me circumvent, he's like, maybe you could find a part of a church that'll just let you use the part of the church or something. I'm like, oh gosh, I got one of those. But I don't know. You know how I am. I have 1,000 ideas a minute. So
well, and it's humans, we're not patient.
No.
And especially this generation, we want it to happen right now, and it's hard.
I call the era, not generation, that we're living in, the era that we're living in, because that way it includes everybody. Everyone wants everything on instant minute. I call it the microwave age.
Yeah.
We all want it on instant minute. And the quicker you get it, the more convenience you feel. And I will tell you, the more convenience in your life, the less God is. Your life will be harder if you have more convenience in your life. Yeah. There's a lot of conveniences I avoid, like newer cars. Yeah. I don't want him to drive along. Oh, we don't like what Dion said on Facebook, so we're going to turn off his car. That shit'll start happening. Don't worry about it. So
yeah, let's hope
it's
not.
all fake control, but that's not really. I don't think that was really where I was going with it, but and there are some times when I wonder, because I want to reach as many people as I can, but I'm not looking to be popular, and I hope that makes sense. I want to help as many people as I can, but I don't need everybody running around saying, "Oh, Dion got me sober." Dion, because I couldn't even get me sober. I can't get anybody sober, but I will do everything I can to make this world a better place before I leave.
And that's kind of, I mean, Jesus didn't do it to be popular. Jesus, and you started this whole conversation about sacrifice, and Jesus just wanted to do good for all people. And
Yeah.
so if we can go to the root of that, and that's what we want to do, is to be good,
Yeah.
to share that goodness and make sure other people experience that goodness.
Yeah. I agree. And when we can do that, um, when we can do that, you know, we become less interested in ourselves, and then we can really start helping other people. You know, for us, you know, for us alcoholics, getting out of self is almost imperative, because if I get stuck in my own head, right? A lot of times in AA, I'll hear people say, "I was in self pity, so I wrote a gratitude list." I'm like, "You're talking about you. That's not going
Yeah.
to work. It's a band-aid." Um, how do they develop spirituality? That's a tough question. I'm not sure who they are.
Specific to the atheist or the agnostic? It was the
Okay.
question right before that. I think Daryl
Oh,
is.
that's what we said. Okay.
Yeah.
And I missed it. That's okay. Thank you. What do we say to the atheist or agnostic? It's a good question. Good question. Oh, open
Yeah.
open the door of willingness a little bit.
Well, I think we just have to really, I always try to meet people where they're at, which means I
Yeah.
ask them a lot of questions, like, what does that mean to them to be an atheist or an
Good
agnostic?
question. Yeah.
So
Ask
you
them,
start the conversation.
asking qualifying question, because my mind, you see, and that's why we need to. This is why we need to learn. Was, you know, I was going to go to the big book and find a fight. No. See, I knew I was going the wrong direction. I was just looking for something. But that tells you how our brains work a little different. Even though I'm going to get to where you're at,
Uh-huh.
we alcoholics need to take that 4. We don't get 2 seconds. We have to take 4.
That's fine.
Yeah, you know. But I think that's great. Ask qualifying questions. Yeah. Why do you feel like you're atheist? And, you know, because honestly, they're atheist and agnostic AA meetings is a hard question for me, because I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can't believe in God. I don't get that. So that's why it's kind of a tough one for me. Great question, Daryl.
Well, and Deanne said I could share as much as I'm comfortable sharing, but I ended up at the Iliff School of Theology.
Okay.
I chose not to go to a Christian seminary because a lot of times the Christian seminaries they're rooted in, they're Baptist or and that's not who I am. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did go to a school of theology with people that are agnostic or atheist or don't have an organized religion that they are a part of, but they wanted to work for nonprofits, feeding the hungry or dealing with people with addiction or finding homes for the homeless. So even if they say they're atheist or agnostic, I think there's a spirituality or a desire to create a better, loving world.
Absolutely.
Even in their atheism or their. So I don't know how to answer it for you, Dan. I mean, I can't imagine going to an AA meeting that's full of atheists and agnostics. I'm with you, that it probably exists.
Well, they have their own separate groups, and from my understanding, even with atheists and agnostics, there's still some sort of, you know, you'll find. Well, here's a good example. It was more me giving somebody crap, but a friend of mine and his fiance, they were getting married, right? And we were at the bar talking, and they were both claimed atheists, and they said that fate brought them together. And I brought up, you're not allowed to have fate. You're an atheist. That's bigger than you. She never talked to me again. But there again, you know, they were using, and I'm just using it as an example, not to put them down, but I mean, and they said they were atheists through and through, but yet fate, karma, these things were still topics. So, but at the same time, that doesn't make them wrong either.
No, but it's like they wanted to get married, so, and it doesn't have to be a religious ceremony, but there's something they're creating together that's bigger than both of them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen until they say we're going to.
I love. They got married in a very Catholic church. So good for that. it just kind of brought up a point that you can, because sometimes people, oh, you're atheist or agnostic, so therefore you don't help people. And that's not true.
No, it's not.
That's not true. You can still help people. You still have your experience, your strength, and your hope. I understand we're not all going to get along, but there's no reason to fight over things that we don't need to fight over.
Yeah. Well, and I just I appreciate everybody that made time to be here today, and I just wanted to point out that this is High Holy Week for our Jewish brothers and sisters. It's Rosh Hashanah, and they're starting to do their whole preparation. I was looking at the calendar, but I am fascinated that people still have rituals and opportunity to welcome
and that's
the greater
one
power.
thing about, and it's funny you bring that up. I want to say this real quick, though. If you have any Jew friends, leave them alone for a week. I forgot what I was going to say. It's all right. But, when you enter, I think allowing other people to make their choices in that is what kind of solidifies it, right? Kind of like I was not an alcoholic until Dion said, I'm an alcoholic. That's when before that, I had alcoholism, or I was a drunk, or I will not do SUD. You forget it. Or AUD. I don't have a disorder. But, it's those same things. It's those same things with me. Where if I repeat to myself something that I am, I will become it. And so I found that it was very hard in the beginning to be nice to me because I was an asshole. I mean, I was the president of the asshole club. Yeah. And it took me years to stop calling myself names and think, but once I did it, I became a different person. Then I became the person that I needed to become. And that's what I love about God is he has taught me and brought me to a place where I can love all of his children appropriately, live a balanced life. I live a very rich life. I am very rich and I make no money, but I'm rich. A lot of people wish they had my life, but it comes with its other things that I don't talk about here. Yeah. It's embarrassing to be 54 and asking your friends to help you buy new tennis shoes. That's embarrassing, but it's part of the sacrifice that I make so I can help God's children because God asked me to. I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And I hang out with other people that don't take credit. We don't, I don't go on Facebook and say, hey, look what we did. No. We go help the next person because God's watching and God ain't going to let me miss out on anything.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to do just a little reading. We'll go ahead and kind of wrap up. Unless you got more things you want to say. There's always more.
Just thank you. Just thank you again. And I want to definitely... Yes, read to us. It's so nice to have somebody else do the reading.
See, and I know what that's like.
I know you do.
Yeah. I'm the one that I'm always blah, blah, blah. I was going to read something, but then the one that I really want popped into my mind. There it is. All right. For anybody following along, I'm going to be on page 275 of the big book. AA is not a plan for recovery that can be finished and done with. It is a way of life, and the challenge contained in its principles is great enough to keep any human being striving for as long as he lives. And those principles that we're talking about, there is a principle to every single step, and those are the principles we're talking about. We cannot outgrow this plan, but you graduate the day you die. That'll be the day that I'm perfect because I'm going to God. as arrested alcoholics, we must have a program for living that allows for limitless expansion. Keeping one foot in front of the others is essential for maintaining our arrestment. Others may idle in a retrogressive groove without too much danger, but retrogression can spell death for us. However, this isn't as rough as it sounds, as we do become grateful for the necessity that makes us toe the line, and we find that we are compensated for the consistent effort by the countless dividends we receive. That's what I was talking about earlier, the dividends that I receive. And they're not always, sometimes they're materialistic, but not always. Not quite. It's not often that they are. But I am being compensated. And I am grateful for the necessity that makes me toe the line. Why? Because then I get to show God's children how great he works. I get to show his omnipotence. And he's going to use me for that. That's a gift. That's a big gift. A complete change takes place in our approach to life, where we used to run from responsibility. We find ourselves accepting it with gratitude that we can successfully shoulder it. Instead of wanting to escape some perplexing problem, we experience the thrill of a challenge and the opportunity affords for another application of AA techniques. We find ourselves tackling it with surprising vigor. The last 15 years of my life have been rich and meaningful. I've had my share of problems, heartaches, and disappointments, because that is life. But also I've known a great deal of joy and a peace that is the handmaiden of an inner freedom. I have a wealth of friends, and with my AA friends, an unusual quality of fellowship. For to these people, I am truly related. First, through mutual pain and despair, and later, through mutual objectives and newfound faith and hope. And as the years go by, working together, sharing our experiences with one another, and also sharing a mutual trust, understanding, and love without strings, without obligations, we acquire relationships that are unique and priceless. There is no more aloneness with that awful ache so deep in the heart of every alcoholic that nothing could ever reach. That ache is gone and never need return again. Now, there is a sense of belonging, of being wanted and needed and loved. In return for a bottle and a hangover, we have been given the keys to the kingdom. And I absolutely believe that. I really do. I believe that God has given me the keys to the kingdom. So I love that reading.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it encompasses a lot. And there's one part in there, it talks about the loneliness that we alcoholics go through. It is the loneliness that kills most of us through suicide. So when we come, and the reason that we feel lonely is because we don't think that anybody else in this world is going what we're going through. So when we come and we think we're terminally unique, and we come into the program to find out that we are not, okay? The best relief I ever got was coming into the program and not describing how lonely I was. I was tired of it. Back to that third step, I would rather do it alone than with somebody who might misunderstand. And when you have to describe your loneliness and they don't get it, you become more lonely, is what happens. It just separates you more. And then your brain will search out those people that will not understand to create more loneliness in your life. Yeah, I'll be careful of that. All right. Do you have any parting words? Anything you'd like to say?
I
know I put people on the spot.
No, this has been wonderful, but I think as you said, we have more in common, I think, was your post than people would think that we do. I think it's just the love. Yes.
I think we both have the same.
Benediction I shared at church yesterday was just go out and love people. And welcome people, and don't judge people, and share God's grace, because it's really about grace and mercy and love.
It is. It's very much about grace. When I see, sometimes I'll see these memes or posts or whatever, somebody having a mental illness and people are laughing, and I can't get on board with that, because but for the grace of God, that's me. That is me. And what I see is somebody needs help, and I wish I could do something about it.
You are. You woke up this morning, and we all have a new day. And
Yeah.
again, I'm so grateful that you came into my life when you did, just because I was just doing my little thing on Sunday mornings, and I think you started something. And
Came
yeah,
stirred your
who
pot a
knows?
little, didn't I?
Yeah,
Yeah, don't try and be comfortable in your recovery around me. It won't work.
yeah,
I'll get you out. Yeah, if you're too comfortable around me, you're just going to want to go away because you can't be comfortable in sobriety. Balance, serenity, those are okay. Those are okay. So,
yeah.
all right. Well, we learned a lot here. I do want to mention one thing before we go. When we first met and we were doing the AA meetings, Marcia had to describe the board, had to describe me to the board. And I believe that you said, he's a good guy, but he's salty. And that is stuck. And I think it's great because I'm salty.
But Jesus actually said, "Go be the salt of the earth." There's a
Yeah,
whole biblical piece to that as well. But yeah, you are.
it just kind of solidifies that I'm doing the right thing. Now, I don't
Absolutely.
want people to think I'm running around thinking I'm the new Jesus or something.
Oh,
This
yeah,
gives us direction.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
all it does. All right, it's time for the Jerry Springer moment where I bring it all together and probably screw it up. Jerry Springer was awesome. He helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, I won't say what Amber said earlier, but um, you know, even when you go to a lot of these rooms or even in AA, you're going to find that you're going to the religion is going to run the gamut. And here's the thing: is alcohol, okay, um, is an equal opportunity destroyer. It doesn't care what religion you are. It doesn't care your race, creed, color. It doesn't care if you think you're a cat. Okay. And neither do we in AA. We don't care. I don't care that you're violent. I don't care that you broke rules or got 16 DUIs or in treatment 7 times. I've heard it all. I don't care. What I care is that you get what you need in the right information so that you can have a better life. That's what we care about. I want you to get well and have a better life so you can join me on the broad highway and we can help more people. It's very selfish, but it's the right selfish. So thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate it. It's always fun to do this live. It makes it a little more interesting. Marcia, thank you so much for your
Oh,
time.
thank
I always
you.
like talking to you. So
Thank you. Me talking to you. And thank you again for everyone that showed up.
yeah.
So,
And if there's another topic or you want to come back on, feel free to. This won't be the last one we do.
oh,
We'll be
good.
getting into more things.
Good. It's always good to be invited back.
Yeah. Well, we talked about spirituality, but all we did would come up with a bunch of topics for more podcasts. That's what we
Oh,
did.
okay.
Or other people may have questions that, maybe they're scared to ask because they're embarrassed or something. This is a safe place for that. Nobody's going to give you shit here for asking a question. There are no stupid questions, just silly answers. There's that meme where Jesus is standing up there. He's like telling who's going to heaven, and the people are down there and they're like, even the addicts and alcoholics. And Jesus says, yes, even people that ask stupid questions. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Dan. Thank you.
Love you.